You're welcome. All right, all the way down. Next good. Okay, fifth graders, before I have you come over, hi again, first of all. I said hi to some of you. Glad to see you again. Your cheeks are a little flushed. The last week when I was here, it was a little cooler outside. So it's probably a little hot now. And you know what? Sometimes it's hard to focus after you've been out in the heat and you're kind of a little bit tired, but we're going to do our best, okay? So I'm going to give you some directions, and then I'm going to have you come meet me on the carpet like we did last time, sitting by someone that you can talk to. So I put some Post-its on your work mats that are in the middle of your desk. Everyone needs two, and what you need to do is you need to, Kylie, can I borrow this? You just need to put them on your notebook like this, and then bring something to write with and this with you to your spot on the carpet. Okay, so it's going to look like this. You need something to write with, and then you're going to come sit on the carpet. All right, I'm going to count down from 5 to 6. That should give you plenty of time to get here. 5, 4, awesome, thanks. 3, 2. Thank you for getting here so quickly. What? Yeah. And let's do a quick check. Point to your partner so you know that you have someone to talk with. Okay, if your partner's not here, what you need to do is just turn to another partnership near you and say, can I join you today? Got it? You need a partner? You have a partner? Yeah. Yep. Okay, great. And you've joined a partnership? If your partner comes in late, yep, you'll just catch it. Oh, all right. All right, guys, so I have to tell you something. Nothing makes me happier than what just happened to be in this classroom. We walked in. I was here with you last week, right? One day I was practicing my teaching. I'm back, and I walk in, and Kylie stops me, and she takes out her book, and she wants to show me something. And she's showing me all of the good thinking that she's been doing on Post-its since I was last here. That's like the greatest gift a teacher can see when kids take some ideas and try them out. So I said, have you been thinking about backstory? And she said that she had. Is it helping you understand your characters more? Yeah. So her book is starting to look like I like 5th grade books to look. Look at my book. To really get good at these books that are sometimes confusing and take a lot of extra effort to read and think, you got to do some work to do that. And I gave you a strategy the last time I was here to help you think about your characters. I had you think about what we're learning from the past, right? The backstories that come into your books. Today I'm going to show you another strategy that you can use to think more deeply about your characters, okay? And so that strategy today is thinking about conflicts. When I say the word conflict, here's what I think of. Clashing, right? Struggling. You can think of problems. Sort of all of those words mean conflict. When something is hard for somebody. And in the books that you read, your characters face conflicts all the time. You have to recognize them, though. So there are 4 kinds that you can be triggered to, here's a conflict. Okay? Here's what they are. The first one I think is the easiest to recognize. It is a conflict that involves characters against each other. If you have siblings, you probably experience this all the time. I know my own kids, they do. They're constantly bickering, they struggle, they don't get along, right? That's a conflict that's easy to figure out. Another conflict sometimes is not as easy to see. It happens inside a character's brain. An example of this is like my daughter who just went to middle school. She was sort of having this conflict like, I want to be a part of the after-school clubs, but I'm worried that I'm not going to be able to have enough time to get my homework. Nobody could see that conflict, but it was stuff that she was kind of struggling with in her brain. So that's another sort of struggle or conflict, right? Another conflict, this one's a little bit trickier, is character versus the society. That just means like where you live, who's in control. So you can kind of think about it like here at school. The society is Hannah Woods. And sometimes things in the society cause conflict, like rules or the way things work. Maybe fifth graders have to wait too long to eat lunch, right? Those are things in your society that make you have struggles, okay? And then finally, it can be the character versus nature, which are things that are sort of out of their control that happen to them. I drew a tornado to help you remember what that meant. Like that can cause trouble, right? And there's really nothing you can do. It's just sort of like a thing that happens, a disaster sometimes. It doesn't always have to be as big as a tornado, but things like that happen, okay? It rains on your birthday. That's a struggle, and that's a nature kind of thing. Great example. So when you're reading, you have to look for those triggers, one of those 4 kinds, and then you have to think. You have to think about the character and collect details about it. And there are some questions you can ask yourself, okay? You can ask yourself, how does my character react? What do they say? What do they do? What do they think after a conflict happens? You can ask yourself, how is the character after the conflict? Have they changed? How was the character before the conflict happened? Compare those two. You can ask yourself, where is this problem happening? Is it happening at school? Is it happening at home? Right, it can help you think about it. And who's involved in the conflict? So I'm going to show you how this work happens. I want you to watch me. So I'm thinking of the book, City of Ember, right? And I'm reading at the part where one of the first conflicts that happens with Lena. And this is when she's getting her job, remember, at the beginning, and they're kind of picking it. And so she picks up the job of pipe works laborer, right? And I'm just going to read a couple of lines. Lena stared miserably down to a letter B someone had scratched on her desktop long ago. Almost anything would have been better than pipe works laborer. Okay, I've got a trigger of a conflict. Now I'm going to use these questions to help me think. So I'm going to kind of think about everything I know about Lena so far. So she gets the pipe works laborer. That's the conflict I've just found. Now I need to think, how was she before that? Right before that happened. And if I go back, I remember this part. Lena's hands were cold. She wrapped her cape around her and pressed her hands between her knees. Please hurry, Mr. Mayor, she said silently. Please, just let us choose and get it over with. So that tells me that before this was something she was really worrying about. She was very nervous. And I'm going to think some more about some of these questions. How was she after it happened? So I'm thinking about this part. This is when she was sitting there, and I just read to you. She was miserable. She's staring down, right? She's thinking about, she would have been content as a doctor's assistant too. At least then she could have stayed above ground. So I'm thinking, oh, so afterwards she's miserable. She's kind of sitting there silently wishing that things were different. She had a choked whisper and said, and then I also was thinking about, like, who is involved in this? Well, the mayor, he's the one helping everybody pick. And so this is kind of a society thing, right? There are rules about when they stop and they start to get their jobs. And then I was also thinking Dune was involved in this because later he's involved in he trades jobs with her, right? So he's kind of part of this whole conflict thing. And so once I've gotten all the details about the conflict and I've used these to help me, then I have to let that push my thinking and learn more about Lena. So here's what I did. So here's all the details, and then I was thinking, okay, so what does this make me think? Lena does not seem to be the type of person who will stand up or fight back. Instead, she is just miserable inside her own head. She's a lot different than Dune in this aspect, because his reaction to the same type of problem was very different. He went to action. Okay? So do you see how when I was thinking about a conflict and thinking about all of these questions, really thinking about how she reacted, it was able to push my thinking about the kind of person she was and understand her better, right? Okay, so now I want you to try it. Take your first Post-it, and we're going to go to the part where she faces another conflict, okay? And here's the conflict. It's when she's doing her message, and she's supposed to be delivering a message to the mayor, and she waits, and she breaks out up onto the roof. Do you remember that part? And she's up there waving, and she's kind of like feeling kind of interested up there. And then this is what happens. Then the door behind her burst open, and a huge guard with a bushy black beard was suddenly running toward her. Halt! He shouted. though she wasn't going anywhere. He grabbed her by the arm. What are you doing here? Okay, so you remember this part? Okay, let's think about the details. What can you figure out or think about with this conflict? So think about, how does she react when this happens? What does she do? Jot some notes down. How does she react? She says, "I was just curious," said Lena in her most innocent voice. "I wanted to see the city from the roof." Okay, so that's how she reacts. How was she before that? If I think back, she's kind of getting impatient. She's curious what's on the other side of the door. Jot some notes. How does she act when the problem, where is the problem happening? It's in like one of the society's buildings, where it seems to be kind of like the clock tower with the mayor and important people around. Who's involved in the conflict? Jot some notes. Okay, just if you take one thing you know that answers one of these questions. A's go first, share it with your partner, just one from your paper. A's go first and then B's share. One thing that you noticed. Go. Okay, so you're telling me what you're thinking. So she was curious. What's something she did? Right. So she broke a rule kind of that she already knew. That's a detail about that conflict. Yeah. Yeah, she kept going, right? Even when she kind of thought that she wouldn't. So the details first are that she broke the rules, she went on the roof, she kept going. Now the second part is going to be what you're thinking about. Does that make sense? Okay. Eyes are here? So on the first part, all you're doing is naming things that actually happened. This is just facts. Fact. She went on the roof. Fact. She thought about stopping but kept going. Fact. She said, "I was just curious." Fact. When she was up there, she was waving and laughing at everybody, even though she knew she wasn't supposed to be up there. Those are just facts, right? That's what's on this side. Now go to your next post-it, and I want you to use this. This makes me think Lena. Think some more about her now that we've seen how she reacts in this conflict. That goes on your second. This is now your thinking. Go. Quick writing. Can I tell you what it made me think? It made me think that deep down inside, maybe she's not as big of a rule follower as I thought she was at the beginning. Because I didn't think she would break a rule since the first time she wouldn't stand up for herself. But now I'm changing my mind. Would you like to borrow my thought? Do you think that too? Yeah, so write something that's kind of like that. That's a good thought that you can start with. Talk more about that. Push yourself. So this might happen another time. I think this because she's not on. It's different, isn't it? Than we kind of thought maybe at the beginning. Okay, I'm going to have you come back here. Take one of your ideas. This makes me think Lena. And talk to your partner. This time, B partners, will you talk first? This makes me think Lena. What are you thinking now? Maybe your thinking has changed. Go. Talk more. I think this because. You don't have to write it, just say it. I think this because. What did you say? Say it again. Okay, so if you did remember, what would you think? But she's a faker. Good. Say that to your partner. Good. Okay, eyes are up here. Can I borrow your post-it? Your second one? Okay, so as I was going around and listening, I heard some really good thinking that pushed you. One of them says she's not thinking straight. She goes up to a building and she's not very, finish that thought.
She's not really like,
She's not following the rules. She's not making good decisions. So now our thinking, if we looked from here to here, is starting to change about her because we're seeing how she reacts to a different conflict, right? And then I saw another one. May I borrow yours? The second one? Okay. She's not a rule follower because she didn't follow them. Were you thinking before that she was?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, somebody else, she's not thinking straight. She's not following the rules. But up here, our thinking was that she was kind of like not going to do much that was wrong because she wouldn't stand up for herself. So we're watching her change. Okay. So guys, as you're reading in 5th grade and these books are harder and we've got to think more about the characters, you're building up your strategies that you can use. You know, you got to pay attention to the backstory. I'm sure you've talked about some things since the last time I was here, strategies that you can use, but now here's also another one. We have to pay attention to conflict. Okay? And we have to ask ourselves questions about what's happening at this point of conflict and then push yourself to think more. Does it seem like something that you can do? To give it a try? Yeah? Okay. So if you plan to already know a conflict, think of your book, a conflict that your character has faced. If you know one that you can go back and think more about, go ahead to your seats. If you know the conflict already, go ahead and go back to your seats. If you don't know of one off the top of your head, pull in a little closer. I'm going to help you one more time. You just got to okay. So you just got to book too. That's a great thing that happened because now you're set up to pay attention from the beginning. Okay. So you won't have anything right away, but remember, you know what to look for now. 4 different kinds, right? So if you're right at the beginning, a lot of times the first conflict, I'm going to give you a hint. A lot of times the first conflict at the beginning. Right, right. Be looking for a character versus self at the beginning. That means that they're inside, they're going to have some thinking that's going on in their head, and you can tell they're bothered by something. That's usually what you see first. So be looking for that, but you might see another one first. But a lot of times it's character versus self. Okay? Okay. You two ready then to go try in your new book?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so what are you going to look for first? The conflict. They're right there. It can help figure out which ones they are. You have a new book too? Do you feel ready to go? Tell me what you're going to be looking for. Conflict. Where can you find the kinds of conflicts if you get stuck and forget? Where can you look in your classroom? Awesome. Go give it a try. We'll see how it goes.